Lieutenant Evan Carter woke to the sound of alarms blaring and a harsh metallic groan vibrating through the walls of the Aurora's edge. The ship had shuddered violently, and the emergency lights cast long red shadows across the narrow corridors. The cryopods were flashing warning signals. He stumbled out of his own pod, limbs stiff from weeks of suspended animation, and tried to take stock. The storm had hit without warning. Magnetic interference had thrown the navigation systems into chaos. The ship's AI reported multiple hull breaches, and then came the most terrifying message of all. The vessel was descending too fast toward Glacia 9, an icy planet on the edge of known space. Evan had heard stories of explorers lost there, swallowed by blizzards and frozen oceans, never to be seen again. And now it seemed he might join them. The crash was violent. Metal twisted, alarms screamed, and the world outside the viewports was a blur of white. When the Aurora's edge finally skidded to a stop, silence fell. The storm raged outside, but inside only broken machinery and the faint hiss of leaking oxygen remained. Evan's heart pounded. He forced himself to move, scanning the wreckage for survivors. Most of the crew pods had been destroyed, leaving only empty shells and flickering life signs. Amid the wreckage, he noticed something unusual. One pod, smaller than the others, half buried in ice with a faint pulse glowing from inside. He approached cautiously. The pod was not human, it was alien. He had seen images of Crithari before, creatures rumored extinct, long thought lost to the galaxy. The form inside was small, delicate and frozen, with faintly shimmering skin and veins glowing pale blue. Evan hesitated. Protocol demanded he leave unknown species for quarantine, but she was alive, barely, and the storm outside showed no mercy. Without another thought, he opened the pod. The seals broke with a hiss, releasing a rush of icy air and the faint smell of ozone. The alien's eyes fluttered open. Her gaze was wide, confused, and filled with fear. A weak, trembling voice escaped her lips. "I'm freezing, human. Please hold me and I'll stay by your side forever." Evan froze, startled by the words. Somehow she had called him human. She could recognize him despite the brief moments of consciousness. Her voice was soft, almost musical, and carried a fragility that tugged at something deep inside him. He wrapped her in the thermal blanket he had grabbed from his pod. It wasn't much, but it was better than leaving her to the storm. Her body pressed against his as he held her close, and he could feel the faint warmth she absorbed from him almost immediately. "My name is Saria," she whispered, her words trembling. "Please, help me survive." Evan nodded, trying to ignore the cold gnawing at his fingers. "We'll get through this," he said. "I won't leave you." Even to himself, the words sounded like a promise he had no idea how he would keep. The wreckage was dangerous, and the storm outside showed no sign of letting up. Evan scavenged what supplies he could, emergency rations, oxygen tanks, and a basic survival kit. Saria was surprisingly light, almost weightless, and she clung to him as if her life depended on it, which it did. By the time he found a small cavern partially shielded from the wind, he was exhausted, but Saria's condition demanded immediate attention. He laid her down gently and began examining her. Her body was fragile, almost crystalline in appearance, and frost covered her limbs. She shivered violently with every breath, and Evan realized that this wasn't just cold, it was something deeper. The alien's energy core, a small glowing organ in her chest, was faltering. Without warmth, she would not survive the night. Evan made a decision. He stripped down to his thermal undersuit and held her against his chest, letting her draw heat from his body. He had read about symbiotic survival in alien species, but never had he imagined it would be this literal. Saria's shivers slowly decreased and her breathing became steadier. Her small hand reached up to touch his face almost instinctively, and he felt a connection beyond words. "What happened to your people?" Evan asked softly, not expecting an answer. We were destroyed," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I survived, but the storm took the rest." Evan's heart tightened. She was alone like him. He realized that the two of them were all that remained in a frozen world that didn't care about survival. Yet something inside him refused to give in to despair. Humans were built to fight, to survive, and above all to protect one another. The night was long. Evan kept Saria close, whispering stories of Earth, of oceans, forests, and cities. Anything to distract her from the cold. In return, she hummed soft melodies, sounds that resonated deep in his mind and made him feel less alone. It was an unusual companionship, but in the endless white of Glacier 9 it was life itself. By morning the storm had lessened, but the temperature remained deadly. Evan knew they could not stay in the cavern forever. He had to find better shelter, a way to survive, and maybe, just maybe, a way off the planet. He gathered what he could, wrapping Saria carefully in layers of thermal fabric. Every movement had to be cautious. One wrong step, one slip, and the cold would claim them both. As they trudged through the ice fields, Evan noticed faint glimmers beneath the snow. Strange structures, ancient ruins partially hidden beneath the frozen surface. They were here, Saria whispered, awe in her voice. This my people once lived here. Evan looked at her, seeing fear and longing mixed with hope. Then we'll find out what's left, he said. And maybe find a way to survive together. The ruins loomed ahead, mysterious and silent. Evan's mind raced with possibilities. Shelter, technology, perhaps even answers. Yet he knew the greatest challenge would not be the cold, the storm, or the isolation. It would be keeping Saria alive and keeping himself from losing hope. That night, as they huddled in a partially collapsed building, Evan thought about the strange words she had spoken. I'll stay by your side forever. He didn't know if she meant it literally or if it was a promise of trust. But he felt it in his own heart. Somehow he knew that whatever happened next, they were bound together. The stars outside Glacier 9 were pale and distant, obscured by clouds and snow, but in the small warmth of their shelter, Evan felt something he hadn't in years, hope. For the first time he realized that survival was more than staying alive. It was finding someone to share the fight with. And in that cold, silent world, Lieutenant Evan Carter and Saria, the last Critheri, began their unlikely partnership, one born of desperation, trust, and the unspoken bond between a human and an alien who relied on him to live. The planet around them was merciless, but inside the fragile shelter, warmth pulsed not just from his body, but from something deeper, something human, something alive. The morning light was pale and weak over Glacier 9, barely cutting through the endless white of the frozen plains. Lieutenant Evan Carter woke to the cold still pressing against his face, but the warmth of Saria's body beside him reminded him that she was still alive. Her chest rose and fell slowly, the faint glow of her energy core flickering with every breath. Evan pulled his thermal blanket tighter around them both and studied the landscape outside the small cavern. The snow stretched endlessly, broken only by jagged ice cliffs and the distant shadows of frozen mountains. There was no sign of rescue, no sign of life other than the two of them. He knew the first priority was survival. Supplies were limited, and the cavern, though better than nothing, offered little protection from the storm that could return at any moment. They had to move, Evan. Saria's soft voice broke the silence. I feel weaker today, he nodded. He had noticed the same thing. Her energy core, fragile as it was, had stabilized through the night, but the cold was still sapping her strength. She needed warmth, constant warmth, something only a living being could provide, and that living being was him. Then we need to find shelter, he said gently. Something permanent, something we can survive in until we figure out how to leave this planet. She nodded, wrapping her arms around him instinctively. I don't understand your kind, human. You risk yourself for me. Why? Evan shrugged, trying to make it simple. Humans, we don't leave anyone behind. You're alive. That's reason enough. Saria studied him quietly, her glowing blue eyes wide. Then slowly she smiled, a faint curve of her lips that seemed almost impossible in her weakened state. Then I will stay by your side, as I promised. Scavenging the wreckage, Evan spent the next hours searching the remains of the Aurora's edge. The storm had left the wreckage partially buried in snow, but enough technology was still intact for him to salvage basic survival tools. Portable heaters, energy cells, plasma cutters, and small rations. Saria followed as best she could. Though fragile, her body had adapted to extreme cold, giving her the ability to move across snowfields that would have drained a normal human in minutes. Even so, she had to conserve energy. Evan noticed how she would glide across the ice silently, leaving faint blue tracks behind her, almost as if the ice itself responded to her presence. When he found a half-intact storage unit, he discovered something unexpected, a cache of survival pods designed for emergency planetary drops. Most were damaged, but a few contained functioning heaters, thermal blankets, and compressed oxygen. This will help, Evan said, smiling faintly. We can make a base here. Saria's eyes lit up. You are truly human. Even in a wasteland you find hope. Evan laughed softly. Hope is the human way. You'll learn it too. Discovering hidden geothermal vents. The days passed slowly, but progress came in small victories. Saria taught Evan how to sense hidden geothermal vents beneath the ice. Pockets of warmth that could sustain life if properly tapped. Using scavenged tech and her knowledge of the planet, they managed to dig small tunnels to reach a vent. Warm steam hissed up as they entered, melting the ice around them just enough to create a livable space. The vent became their temporary home. Evan rigged heaters and energy cells around the tunnels, while Saria rested near the steam, her body absorbing warmth more effectively than before. For the first time since the crash, she smiled without fatigue. "You saved me from death," she said one evening, staring into the flickering light of the heater. "But why?" "My species. We are weak compared to yours." Evan shrugged again. "Strength isn't measured in power or size. Strength is what you do when the world wants you gone. We fight, we survive. We help each other." Saria remained quiet for a moment, processing his words. Then she whispered almost to herself, "You are different from what I expected. The humans, maybe they are more than survivors. Maybe they are protectors," Evan smiled. "You'll see. We don't give up easily." The growing bond's days turned into weeks. The bond between the two deepened. Survival had forced them close, but now they found comfort in each other's presence. Saria began to mimic some human gestures, small things like offering a hand when crossing ice or nudging Evan awake gently when he fell asleep too long. Evan, in turn, found himself talking more than ever, telling her stories of Earth, the oceans, the forests, the cities lit at night, and the endless variety of people and cultures. Saria listened with fascination, her large eyes reflecting curiosity and awe. "You have so much life," she said one day, "and you share it with me." "You're worth sharing it with," Evan replied simply, holding her hand. The warmth of their connection was more important than the thermal blankets or heaters. In a world that seemed dead, they had found life in each other. The first encounter with danger one evening, as the cold deepened, Saria suddenly stiffened. Her body glowed faintly, and she pointed toward the horizon. Evan squinted through the blizzard and saw the faint outlines of mechanical forms moving across the ice. Drones, unlike anything he had seen, their bodies sleek and black, patrolling with silent precision. "They are hunters," Saria whispered, fear creeping into her voice. They took my people, and now they seek me." Evan's heart raced. He had expected the planet to be lonely, abandoned. But danger had found them, reminding him that survival was not just about warmth or food. It was about staying alive against those who would end them. He quickly gathered weapons from the storage. Pods, plasma cutters, and small energy pistols. Saria, despite her weakened state, followed, using her knowledge of the ice to move silently. Together they set traps and prepared an ambush, determined not to be easy prey. When the drones finally approached, Evan and Saria were ready. Using a combination of human improvisation and Saria's alien abilities, they disabled two of the machines, sending sparks flying across the snow. The remaining drones retreated, leaving them in silence once more. Saria stared at Evan, awe in her glowing eyes. "You risked yourself. For me?" "Again." Evan shrugged, brushing snow from his jacket. "That's what humans do. We survive, together." Hope in the heart of ice. After the encounter, they returned to their geothermal vent home, more cautious but undeterred. Evan realized that Saria's presence was not just a responsibility, it was a lifeline for him as well. Her knowledge, her alien senses, and her quiet courage had saved them both. They were stronger together than alone. One night, as the wind howled outside and snow drifted against their ice walls, Saria rested her head against Evan's shoulder. "I'd feel warmth, not just from your body, but from your heart," she murmured. Evan smiled, feeling a rare sense of peace. "Then we'll keep moving forward. We'll survive. We'll find a way off this planet, and we'll do it together." The storm outside had not ended, but inside their small sanctuary, warmth and trust had begun to grow. The frozen wasteland of Glacia 9 was merciless, yet Evan and Saria had carved out a small corner of life in its harshness. For the first time since the crash, Evan allowed himself to hope. The planet could be cold, dangerous, and lonely, but together, they could face anything. The frozen world of Glacia 9 stretched endlessly before Lieutenant Evan Carter and Saria. The winds had calmed slightly, but the planet remained a harsh white wasteland. Ice cliffs rose like jagged teeth against the pale sky, and every step across the snow-crusted plains felt like walking on glass. Yet for the first time in weeks, Evan felt determination rather than despair. They had survived the storm. They had survived the drones. And now, Saria's guidance promised something more. Answers. Saria moved gracefully ahead, her luminous blue glow faint against the icy landscape. "The ruins. They are not far," she said, her voice soft but urgent. "My people. Hit a signal beneath the ice. It may still work. If we reach it." Evan glanced at her, curiosity mingling with caution. "A signal? What kind of signal?" "Communication. With those left behind," Saria explained. "It was our lifeline once. If we activate it, we may reach others, or at least know the truth of what happened." Evan nodded. He had no illusions. The Crithari were thought extinct. But hope was a human trait, and hope was what kept them moving across the frozen plains. The journey, across the wastes, the trek was grueling. Their boots sank deep into snowdrifts, and every gust of wind threatened to push them off balance. Evan carried their scavenged supplies while Saria glided across the ice, her body barely touching the snow. Her alien physiology was remarkable. She could sense weak spots in the ice and detect underground warmth pockets. Despite the exhaustion, Evan and Saria shared moments of lightness. He told her stories of Earth's oceans and cities. She hummed soft Crithari melodies that resonated through the ice. In those moments, the cold seemed less cruel and the barren world less hostile, but danger never fully disappeared. The drones had returned, small black machines skimming over the snow like predatory birds. They were faster, smarter, and seemed to anticipate every movement Evan and Saria made. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the icy horizon, Saria halted suddenly. "Drones, approaching. We must hide." Evan quickly spotted the glint of black metal across the snow. He had become adept at planning ambushes, using the terrain to their advantage. "Follow me," he whispered and led her behind a jagged ridge. Using plasma cutters and makeshift traps, they disabled 3 of the drones, sending sparks flying across the ice. The remaining drones retreated, seemingly calculating a new approach. Saria looked at Evan with awe. You risked everything again." "For me?" he smiled faintly. "We're stronger together. Always remember that." The hidden ruins after days of travel, Saria finally guided Evan to the first sign of the ancient Crithari city. Jagged spires of ice-covered structures rose from the snow, faintly glowing from embedded crystals. It was a city abandoned for centuries, yet the alien architecture still radiated a strange beauty. Elegant and functional, alive with memories of a vanished people. "This was my home," Saria said, voice trembling. "I remember. Stories from before the fall. The signal lies beneath the central spire, but it is protected." Evan scanned the ruins carefully. The entrances were narrow and treacherous, buried beneath ice and snow. Yet something about the place inspired hope, proof that Saria's species had once thrived. They moved cautiously, using small plasma cutters and tools scavenged from the wreckage. Saria's knowledge of Crithari architecture guided them to a hidden elevator shaft, leading deep into the ice. Evan marveled at the intricate carvings along the walls, glowing faintly in Saria's bioluminescent light. The pulse chamber after hours of careful descent. They arrived at the heart of the ruins, a vast chamber filled with crystals and machinery glowing faintly in blues and whites. At the center stood the pulse core, the source of the Crithari signal. Evan could feel the hum of energy vibrating through the floor, a living pulse, faint but persistent. Saria approached it cautiously. "This is what remains of my people's connection. If we activate it, it may reach beyond the stars." Evan studied the console. It was alien, but his knowledge of basic circuitry and human ingenuity allowed him to understand the interface. "Show me what to do," he said. As they worked together, Saria guided his hands to the delicate connections. The core flickered, hummed, and pulsed brighter. Then suddenly the chamber shook violently. The ice around them cracked. Drones, attracted to the activation of the signal, stormed into the chamber. Evan grabbed Saria, shielding her from the first volley of attacks. The fight was tense and dangerous, Evan using improvised weapons, Saria using her alien abilities to manipulate ice and light, striking drones with precision. Sparks flew, metal clanged, and the pulse of the core vibrated in rhythm with their struggle. Through coordinated effort, they disabled the drones, but the chamber itself had suffered damage. The pulse core flickered, unstable. Saria looked at Evan, her eyes glowing brightly. "We cannot fail now. The signal, it must reach the stars." The human advantage. Evan took a deep breath. Despite exhaustion and freezing temperatures, he had one advantage humans rarely gave up: persistence. He analyzed the core, tapping into what little he understood of alien technology. While Saria's knowledge was deep, it was tied to instinct and memory. Human reasoning added the missing step. "Hold the stabilizers," he instructed. "I think I can reroute the energy through the vent channels. It may overload, but it will send the pulse." Saria obeyed, her hands glowing as she reinforced the core's energy field. Evan rerouted connections, working with precision and urgency. Sparks flew, and the ice vibrated under their feet. For a moment it seemed impossible. Then a surge of light shot upward, passing through the ruined spire and into the sky above Glacier 9. The pulse core hummed steadily, the energy field stabilizing. The signal was active. Saria's hands dropped in relief. It works. They may hear us. Somewhere out there." Evan smiled faintly, wiping sweat and frost from his brow. "We did it. Together." A growing realization. As the chamber quieted, Evan realized something important. Survival was not just about fighting drones or braving storms. It was about connection, the bond between human and alien, warmth against the cold, trust against fear. Saria looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with gratitude. You risked your life. Again, humans are unlike anything I imagined. You fight not for survival alone, but for others." Evan nodded. "That's what humans do. We protect, we help, we survive, together." The alien seemed to consider this, her glowing hands touching his arm lightly. "Then I will stay by your side, as I promised, forever." The words struck Evan in a way he could not explain. He had promised himself he would survive for Saria, but somehow in the harsh ice and endless snow, her promise felt just as strong as his. The storm returns. Outside the chamber, the blizzard began again. Snow whipped across the spires, fierce and relentless. Yet inside, Evan and Saria felt something the storm could not take: warmth, trust, and purpose. The planet could be deadly, but they had each other, and now a lifeline to the stars. Evan looked at Saria, determination in his eyes. "Tomorrow we follow the pulse. We find answers. We find hope." Saria's faint smile glowed in the crystal light. "I will follow you. Anywhere, human." Even beyond the storm. The storm howled, but it no longer mattered. Two survivors, human and Critheri, had found not just survival but strength in each other. And somewhere out in the stars a faint signal pulsed, a promise that their struggle was not in vain. The pulse chamber hummed softly, its glow painting icy walls in shimmering blues and whites. Lieutenant Evan Carter stood beside Saria, marveling at the alien technology. Despite the cold that clawed at his human body, warmth radiated from her, not just physically, but in a way that made him feel alive and connected to the fragile world around them. The pulse they had activated earlier had sent a faint signal across the galaxy, a message of life, survival, and hope. Evan could not see its reach, but he felt its significance. Somewhere out there, if even one Critheri survivor or allied species received it, their efforts would not have been in vain. Saria approached the glowing core of the pulse chamber, her hands hovering above it. "Evan, this is more than a beacon. This is the memory of my people, their knowledge, their lives. It is stored here. I can feel them, their voices, their fears, their hopes, and their final despair." Evan looked at her, concern creasing his brow. "Is it dangerous?" "It is powerful," she admitted. "Too much, and it could consume me, or us both." He took her hand gently. "We've faced worse. Together we can handle this. Just tell me what to do." Saria nodded, her glowing blue eyes softening with trust. She guided him to touch the console beside the pulse core. Symbols and lights danced in patterns beyond his understanding. Yet instinct and careful reasoning allowed Evan to follow her instructions. Seria's revelation, as the system began to power up, Seria's body trembled. Her skin shimmered brighter, and she drew deeply from Evan's warmth. The energy. It is too much, she said, her voice strained. If I do not share it, I will fail. I will die. Evan tightened his grip on her hand. Then we'll share it. You don't have to do this alone. For a moment, silence fell over the chamber. Then, slowly, Seria began to transfer a portion of her energy into Evan, not physically, but in a way that merged their life forces. A warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the thermal heaters or geothermal vents. It was alien and human at the same time, a bond that tied their fates together. Her glowing eyes met his. You gave me warmth when I had none. Now I give you mine. You'll never be alone, Evan, not ever. The words resonated deeply. He realized that Seria's promise was not just metaphorical, it was literal. Their survival depended on trust, on warmth, and on a connection that transcended species. The chamber awakens with the combined energy. The pulse core thrummed louder. Crystals along the walls began to glow more vividly, casting long shadows across the icy floor. Holographic images appeared showing fragments of Krithari history, cities gleaming beneath the ice, ships traveling between stars, and faces of a people long gone. Evan stared, captivated. He had read about alien civilizations, but seeing the Krithari in their prime, knowing they had built a network across the stars, left him awestruck. Seria whispered, "This is what my people wanted the universe to know, not just that we existed, but that we survived through knowledge, through unity, and through trust." Evan glanced at her. "Then we'll honor that together." She nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "Yes, together." The drones returned suddenly. A rumble shook the chamber. Evan and Seria turned to see the black drones from the surface, more numerous this time, advancing toward the chamber. It was clear they had tracked the activation of the pulse core and were determined to destroy it. "We must protect the core," Seria shouted, her voice echoing off the ice walls. "If it falls, all of this is lost." Evan quickly scanned the chamber. Using debris and shards of crystal, he set up improvised barriers while Seria manipulated ice and light, forming energy fields that deflected the first attacks. Sparks flew and drones collided with walls, shattering into pieces. Yet more kept coming, relentless in their pursuit. Despite the chaos, Evan and Seria moved with precision and trust. Every action was coordinated, human ingenuity complementing alien instinct. Evan realized with a surge of pride that this partnership had made them stronger than any single individual could be. The critical choice. The pulse core began to destabilize under the strain of the fight. Cracks appeared along its crystalline surface. Evan knew that if it collapsed, the history of the Krithari and the possibility of sending the signal across the galaxy would be lost forever. "We have to overload it," he shouted to Seria. Seria shook her head. "It is too dangerous. The energy could kill us both." Evan met her gaze, determination in his eyes. "We have survived storms, drones, and freezing wastelands. We survive now together or not at all. I won't let it die, and I won't let you die." Seria hesitated, then nodded. Trusting him completely, she focused her energy into stabilizing the chamber, while Evan rerouted the core's power through the geothermal vents below. Light exploded around them, warmth and energy filling the chamber. Evan felt a surge coursing through his body as Seria's essence intertwined with his own. Pain and power collided, but he held on. Together they channeled the energy and the pulse core stabilized, sending a powerful signal out into space. The chamber quieted, and the drones were destroyed or driven away. Silence returned, broken only by the soft hum of the pulse core and their synchronized breathing. A moment of reflection. Evan sank to the icy floor, exhausted but alive. Seria knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "You are unlike any human I have ever known," she said softly. "Your strength, your heart, it is more than survival. It is love, your protection." Evan laughed softly, the sound raw and tired. "I just do what I think is right. I protect, I survive, and I trust you. That's enough." Seria smiled faintly, her glow dimming to a soft radiance. "Then I trust you too. Always. Forever." For a long time they sat in silence, letting the warmth of their bond fill the cold chamber. The signal they had sent would reach across the stars, carrying the story of the Krithari and their survival, thanks to a human who refused to leave one of their own behind. The true connection, as the night deepened, Seria's energy began to stabilize within Evan's warmth. He realized something profound. The bond they had formed was not temporary. It was a fusion of human resilience and alien endurance. Their survival depended on each other, and through that connection they had unlocked something neither could have achieved alone. "You changed my life," Seria whispered, "and I changed yours." Evan nodded, feeling the truth of her words in every pulse of warmth and energy. "Then we keep moving forward, together. Whatever comes next, we face it as one." She placed her hand over his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Yes, together, forever. The pulse core pulsed faintly beneath their feet, a silent testament to trust, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a human and a Krithari, preparing for the next step. The chamber was safe for now, but Glacier 9 remained a deadly world. Evan and Seria knew they could not stay indefinitely. Supplies were low, the cold was ever present, and the signal they had sent might attract others, friend or foe. Evan rose to his feet, determination in his eyes. "We've done the impossible so far. We've survived storms, drones, and ancient traps. Now we move forward. We find allies or we find a way off this planet." Seria rose beside him, her glow steady and reassuring. "And I will stay by your side, no matter what lies ahead." He smiled faintly, feeling warmth that had nothing to do with heaters or geothermal vents. It was the warmth of trust, of companionship, of two beings united against the galaxy. Together, they stepped toward the exit of the pulse chamber, leaving the glowing crystals behind but carrying the light of hope and survival within them. Outside, the storm still raged, but inside they were unshaken. The frozen plains of Glacier 9 stretched endlessly under a pale, icy sun. Lieutenant Evan Carter and Seria moved carefully through the snow, leaving behind the glowing pulse chamber, but carrying within them its energy and purpose. The storm had finally passed, leaving the world eerily silent. Snow drifted like a white sea, broken only by the tracks of two survivors, one human, one alien, bound together in trust and warmth. Evan paused to catch his breath, his thermal suit already damp from the long trek. Seria hovered nearby, her body radiating a faint blue glow that pulsed in rhythm with her steadying heartbeat. Despite her alien physiology, she still relied on Evan's warmth, a delicate balance of survival and trust that had sustained them for weeks. "The storm is over," Evan said softly, scanning the horizon. "Now we keep moving. The pulse core sent our signal. Someone might hear it. Someone might come." Seria's large luminescent eyes blinked slowly. "I feel something. Evan, a presence. Not hostile, but aware. Perhaps they are responding." Evan's heart lifted. After everything, after storms, drones, and near-death experiences, hope seemed possible again. They pressed on, carefully making their way toward the area Seria had sensed the faintest trace of activity, a possible landing zone or hidden rescue site. The signal answered hours passed, and the wind remained calm. Then faintly a hum reached their ears, distant but unmistakable. Evan stopped, straining. The sound was mechanical but not threatening, familiar, almost welcoming. Seria tilted her head. It is them." They received the pulse. "They are coming." Evan's pulse quickened. It had taken weeks, but their signal, their desperate attempt at survival, had finally been answered. The thought of rescue filled him with cautious hope. He turned to Seria. "We're going home. Or at least, someone is coming to help." She nodded, but there was worry in her eyes. I do not know if they can help us completely. The energy I have shared with you is part of me now. If they take you or us apart, it could harm us both." Evan smiled faintly. "Then we go together, always, just like we promised." The arrival of the rescue team from the sky, a glint of metal appeared, faint at first, then growing larger. A human rescue shuttle sent from the nearest colony after intercepting the Krithari pulse descended toward them. Its engines melted the snow beneath, leaving a steaming path of ground in its wake. Evan and Seria waved frantically, their forms small against the vast whiteness of the plains. The shuttle landed safely nearby, and a hatch opened, revealing a squad of humans in cold-weather suits, scanning for survivors. "Lieutenant Carter," one of them called. "We received your distress signal. Are you okay? Evan moved forward, shielding Saria slightly as he spoke. We're alive, but not alone. This is Saria. She's a Krithari. She's alive because of me. The humans hesitated at first, unsure how to respond to an alien species, but seeing the trust and bond between the two, they understood. Saria's glow dimmed slightly as she allowed Evan to step closer to the shuttle. The connection revealed. Evan stepped onto the shuttle's ramp first, holding out a hand to help Saria. As she touched him, the warmth they shared pulsed visibly, a faint halo of blue surrounding them both. The human crew watched in awe, not just at her alien form, but at the energy connecting the two. One of the crew members, an engineer named Mira, stepped forward. That energy, it's incredible. It's like life itself is flowing between you two. Evan nodded. It is. She saved me as much as I saved her. Together we survived, and together we are stronger than the cold, the drones, or anything else this planet could throw at us. Saria tilted her head, her eyes meeting Evan's. You do not understand blood fully. My people's signal, my energy. It is part of him now. Our lives, intertwined, we cannot be separated. Evan squeezed her hand gently. Then we stay together. Always. That's the only way we survive. Departure from Glacia 9. The shuttle's engines roared to life, melting paths through the snow as it lifted off. Evan and Saria stood side by side, watching Glacia 9 recede below them. The frozen planet had tested them, pushing them to their limits, but it had also forged a bond stronger than any adversity, a union of human courage and Krithari resilience. Inside the shuttle, the warmth of the cabin felt comforting but strange compared to the icy world outside. Saria hovered near Evan, her glow soft but steady, the pulse of life between them constant. Do you think we can survive together? She asked quietly. Evan smiled. We've survived worse already. Storms, drones, starvation, almost dying. And we've done it together. Yes, Saria, we'll survive. And more than that, we'll thrive. She nodded, her large eyes reflecting relief and hope. Then, I will remain by your side. Forever. As I promised. A new beginning. Weeks later, Evan and Saria arrived at the human colony. Scientists, medics, and officials crowded around, eager to understand the Krithari survivor and the mysterious energy connecting her to a human. Yet despite their curiosity, Evan and Saria's bond remained private, a shared warmth no one could replicate. The medical team ran scans and tests, but every attempt to separate them failed. Saria's energy and Evan's life force were now intertwined, part of a shared survival mechanism, part of a bond neither fully understood but both accepted. You've made history, one scientist whispered to Evan. Humanity, and now an alien species, united in survival. It's unprecedented. Evan shrugged modestly. I just did what humans do. We don't leave anyone behind. We fight, we protect, and we survive together. Saria's voice echoed softly only for him. And I will stay by your side, forever. Reflections on humanity. As days turned to weeks, Evan came to understand the true meaning of what they had endured. Glacia 9 had tested the limits of human endurance, alien endurance, and the bond between species. But more importantly, it had shown the galaxy a truth humanity had long embodied. Courage, empathy, and selflessness were strengths more powerful than any weapon. Saria's presence reminded him constantly that warmth, trust, and compassion were not weaknesses. They were lifelines. The Krithari pulse, once dormant for centuries, now resonated not just in her species but through humanity as well. One evening, standing on a balcony overlooking the colony, Evan felt Saria's presence beside him. Her glow reflected in his eyes, a constant reminder of their shared journey. Do you ever think about what we went through? She asked. All the time, he admitted. But I also think about what we gained. Friendship, trust, hope, and you. Saria's glow brightened faintly. And I think about you. About warmth. About trust. About never being alone, Evan smiled. Then we keep moving forward together, she nodded. Forever. A galaxy witnessed news of their survival spread quickly across human colonies and beyond. Scientists, diplomats, and historians marveled at the partnership between a human and a Krithari, bonded through survival and mutual sacrifice. Humanity's courage, its willingness to protect and endure, became a symbol across star systems. Evan and Saria became ambassadors of that truth, not just survivors, but living proof that connection, empathy, and selflessness could bridge species, planets, and even centuries of misunderstanding. And though Glacia 9 remained a frozen wasteland, the warmth they shared now illuminated the galaxy, a light of hope, courage, and enduring trust. Epilogue. The promise fulfilled at night in their shared quarters aboard the colony, Evan felt the familiar pulse of Saria's energy intertwined with his own. It was warmth that went beyond physical comfort. It was life, trust, and an eternal promise. "I'll never leave you," Evan whispered. "And I will never leave you," Saria replied, her voice soft and steady. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, but inside, two lives beat as one. Humans and Krithari, warmth against the cold, courage against despair, bound together by choice, trust, and the promise to always survive. Together. And in that simple truth, the galaxy learned something profound. Humanity was more than a species. It was a force of hope, resilience, and compassion that no storm, no alien drone, and no frozen planet could ever defeat. The universe had tested them, but they had endured. And in the end, warmth always returned.